Hey,
Man, what's going on, man?
let me make sure I adjust this properly. How's it
No
going?
problem. It's going good. I'm sorry I was laughing, looking at this CNN right now with
Yeah,
your president. Your president is on TV right now talking real crazy.
uh, uh, I would say our president, but not for long, hopefully.
That's why he's so upset right now. I can't.
Yeah, I'm watching it now. It's like it's actually really weird. Like if something really pops off, I may have to jump
Hit
off.
up. I know you
I'm
got a
kidding.
job to do. We get it.
um,
Perfect, perfect. How you
well,
doing? How
thanks
you
for having
feeling?
me. I'm feeling good now. I'm sure I'm sure like you and many people watching. On Tuesday night, I was a bit scared.
Yeah,
Uh, I didn't know where the election was going, but right now it's looking really good.
feeling real good. Feeling real
But
good.
as you can imagine, for a journalist during these times,
Yep.
it's exhausting.
Very much
It's
so. Very much
but
so.
yeah, it's worth it because I mean, it's important that people are locked in and engaged and know what's going on. So
Right.
I love what I do, but it can be.
It's a lot, I'm sure. And everyone, I got a lot of friends that's like, oh yeah, I just turned the TV off, and I was like, I can't really do that. Like I have to be, know
Yeah,
what's going on, get the alerts and all that type of stuff.
yeah,
So it just happens in positions we in.
yeah. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
Because some people, I think it's a curse because when you want to turn away,
Yeah.
you can't.
Right.
And other people who have different jobs, they can just like they can just focus on work and like, you know
Right.
what, I don't
Right.
want to see this madness. I don't want to see our world suffering, our country
Exactly.
on
Exactly.
fire. And we're just like locked in all the time. And then that can really play a role in your psyche. Like it can be a little
No,
bit
yeah, it's true. And even
depressing.
specifically about the black men that are killed. A
Yeah.
lot of times people are like, oh, I just can't watch the videos. I can't do X, Y, and Z. And so we are like writing about these things. We have to share this type of stuff. So it's tough. It's definitely a tough
Yeah, yeah.
position that we're in. But we already talking. All right, guys. So as you guys know, I am here. We are having another one of our conversations, and this one today is really going to be a conversation, really talking about Black media, the urban media, and really what it means to be Black media, and all those various topics that we will discuss. And today we have the intelligent Gerren.
You
Gerren
did. It is
Gaynor.
Gerren. No,
Look, I
you
can't.
had it right the first time. It was
The
Gerren.
first time Gerren, this whole time I've been saying Gerren the whole. I'm sorry.
When you did the intro before I came in, I was like, oh, he said Gerren, but it's fine.
And I was like, and the thing is that I watch your videos and I've been trying to like get every time and I always forget.
Yeah.
So Gerren
Yeah.
Gaynor, who is the managing editor for the Grio, and we are super, super happy to have him right now to speak with us. He also wrote a piece inside of our culture issue, talking about Black media in the era of fake news. It's a really, really good piece. If you guys have not checked it out, please go and do so. But again, Gerren, you good? You all
Yes.
right? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm really excited. But first, before we even get started,
Sure.
I just want to say thank you for having me. And I'm a big fan of the Quarterly Gentleman. I think what you're doing is just like phenomenal. Particularly just like, really putting out positive, healthy images of Black men. And as a graduate of Morehouse College, I'm really, I really care about the image of the Black man, all Black men.
Right.
And yes, I love what you do. So when I was asked to be a part of the culture issue, I was like, hell yeah, I would definitely want to be a part of it.
Thank you. And shout out to Dane. Makes all of our things happen
Shout out
in
to
our
Dane.
space. So Dane's awesome. But great. So let's just get started. First and foremost, I want to know what your thoughts are as what is the role of Black media and why does it exist?
That's a good question. I'm gonna start with the second question. I think Black media exists because there was a time where there was no elsewhere to go for Black people in America to get information that they could trust. If you know anything about Black people in America, is this distrust of anything outside the community, whether it's the white man, or the white man's institutions, and so white media, just like everything else at that during times of slavery, there was no information to go to, and so you have these publications like the North Star and the Freedom's Journal. And in the 1800s, and so these are some of the first emerging Black publications or Black media. And then it evolved, a century later, where you have Ebony magazine. I believe they were founded in 1945, and so this is during the Jim Crow era. And so, Black media serves as different things. One is a reflection for Black people because there weren't images of us, positive images. When you think about images that were controlled by white people at the time or racists at the time, you had the Sambo, you had the Mammy, and so Black media put us in a position. It put us in a good light. It showed the truth of who we were, and not what white America wanted us to be. And so there's that part, and then also it's about a lot of, I think that distrust plays also, it allows us to connect to the community, because a lot of times we're white America has ignored us for forever. And one thing that was interesting this year, when the George Floyd protest happened, mainstream media focused on race in a way I've never seen before. Anywhere you turn, whether it was cable news or if it was traditional news like on the internet or newspapers and magazines, everyone's talking about race and racism. But Black media, we were talking about these things when it wasn't cool or when it wasn't the center of the conversation. And so many times, Black America only had Black media to really reflect, what the community actually is going through, whether that's police violence, like even in 2014, like I remember working at BET, and the Michael Brown protest took place, and it got national attention, but it really was Twitter, and it was Black media that was keeping the conversation alive. And so Black media, we give representation, we highlight the truth of who we are, because the truth is white media doesn't always get it right. And we know how we should be represented. We know, like for instance, during protests a few years ago, more so, but even now you still see it. We refer to protesters we protest as riots, which depicts us as inherently more violent, as like almost like monsters. And so in Black media, we often took the position of no, they are demonstrators, they are protesters. We can call it an uprising. We don't like using the word looting. These negative words that don't come from us, it comes from the outside, trying to paint us a certain way. And so for me, Black media it should be a safe space for Black people, that you're getting your information from people who care about you. Oftentimes journalism is kind of painted as something that we should be unbiased, and we should, because that's how you build credibility. But in Black media, we play these dual roles. It's like the W.E.B. Du Bois double consciousness. It's like, yes, I'm a journalist and I should be just telling you the news, but also I'm a Black man, I'm a Black gay man, and so when these issues come up, I can't help but not think about how it's impacting my community. And so there's a level of care that I think us as Black journalists have. And when I say Black media, I think we should also include Black journalists who work at predominantly white institutions.
Correct.
Because they're doing that work too.
Right.
Like Nicole Hannah-Jones, who created the 1619 Project, Pulitzer Prize winning Nicole Hannah-Jones. She is a Black journalist, and I consider her a part of the Black media apparatus, because we're doing work that is really important. We're passionate about our community and highlighting the suffering of our community, and making sure that we're represented well and that the truth is being told, and that we're constantly reminding America this is what Black America is. And anything that's negative, that is negative about our community, know that this is what you did to Black America. White America created the ghetto. Black people didn't do that. White people introduced, as Tamika Mallory said famously, white people taught us how to be violent. So I think Black media is so crucial, because that it's coming from a place of love for community. And I think that that's the difference between Black media and just a regular journalist who's just covering a race-based news story, or any story for that matter.
And I think, you know, there's two things I want to piggyback off that you said. First and foremost is Black media actually showing and depicting who we are, especially because of TV and film. It's always white people who are saying, you know, this is what a Black person does, or this is how they speak, or this is what they would say. And we've had that time and time again. So definitely Black media is really important for us to control our narrative, to share our stories, to talk about the things that are actually happening to us. And to your other point about, you know, being a journalist and not wanting to be biased or not wanting to have an opinion. Even myself, I had to go through that process because when I started the Quintessential Gentleman, I said, I only want to do positive conversations. I don't want to talk about politics. Writers would have ideas about the things that's going on. I started this in 2016. So that was at the height of all of the 45s drama and all that type of stuff. So, you know, I had to make that, I started off not wanting to have any of that negativity on the platform because we have enough of it. There's enough people talking about it. But I also realized by me not speaking on it, I was being complicit, and I was also adding to it by not being outraged or not sharing the videos or not talking about those type of things. So there's definitely a piece of it that, you know, you have to, and I think there is a responsibility, and this goes into my second question I'm going to ask you, for Black media to do certain things. So I will ask you now what your thought process is on minority-owned platforms. Do you think they have a social responsibility to our community, to their audience?
Absolutely. I mean, because we have to remember, what are you doing this work for? You know, the whole point of journalism at large is to service the public. And so for Black media, we are a service to the Black community. And so one thing I love about what we do at the Grio is that we try to foster the Grio as not just this like premier organization that knows it all and, you know, and we're just giving you the information. We try to bring the audience in because we always refer to our readers as the Grio fam. Because it's obviously anything that's Black is usually very familiar, you know? And so that's how the Grio is kind of modeled. And it's important to listen to our readership because we're human. We don't always get it right. And so our readers are really quick to come in the comments, either on like our Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or the stories themselves. They'll email us. They'll find our contributor email account, and they'll go, hey, you didn't put this information in there, or this was wrong. And you don't want those things to happen, but the reality is that they're holding us accountable. And that's what we should want from each other as a community, but also as a human race, as Americans. We should all be held accountable. But we are in service to the Black community because we're doing this work for them. We want to make sure that they're getting the knowledge that they have. We want to make sure that they need. We want to make sure that we're giving them a platform. You know, we have a lot of Black businesses that come to us and say, hey, can you write about my business? Even artists, like in entertainment, you know, a lot of times R&B artists, certain underground artists, you know, who are not the Cardi B's and Beyonce's of the world, don't get a lot of attention from Billboard and Spin and all the other publications that service predominantly white audiences or all audiences. And so we give them a platform, and they're so appreciative of it, you know? And I see that as a service. You know, we're always indebted to the readership. One, because I mean, if they're not reading,
that's it. You don't have
we have no jobs to have. There's no point. So it's a relationship. And so I don't take that lightly. Because that's why I got into journalism. I started on the campus of Morehouse College. I was the managing editor at the student newspaper there. And I saw how the things I wrote impacted the campus and how they responded to it, for good or for bad. And there's something very magical about having impact in that kind of way with your words, or with or even it might be for photojournalism. That's also a part of the Black media space. It's all important because we're mirroring each other's triumphs and our sufferings. So yeah, to answer your question in a long answer,
All
yes,
good.
I agree.
Awesome, awesome. So you talk about the impact and us doing a service. My question is, as the gossip laws continue to rise, do you think that they negatively portray the urban culture, or what do you think that impact
Ah,
negatively on the culture? I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but
I didn't know I was
gotta
going to get a
ask.
hard question now. That's a good question. Um, I think like all things, like social media, for example,
Mhm.
all things can be used for bad. And I would be a liar if I said that when I went through my timeline and I saw some of the posts from the blogs or more urban uh, forms of media,
Yeah.
I do kind of cringe sometimes because there's not a diversity there.
Yeah.
I think it's not that I have a problem with, I love seeing people twerk, and what's wrong with cursing? Like I don't want to. We shouldn't get into respectability politics
Mhm, mhm.
because blackness is not monolithic.
Yep.
And ultimately, anything that we are today is a product of
Of
our
our
history, what we've been through.
Yep.
And to deny those parts of ourselves is to deny that history. Obviously, we want to always improve upon ourselves, and we want to show positive images of who we are. Um, I think my only big issue is violence,
Mm.
because again, we learn violence from through slavery and through racial violence in America, and oftentimes we can get in these precarious situations where we kind of glorify violence.
Yeah.
I've been that person. I get it. Like you see a fight, you're like, oh my god.
Right. right. Right.
Um, so we all get sucked into it. But I don't like violence at all, whether it's from my community or elsewhere. And
Right.
so yeah, I think there has to be a balance, and I think that I don't know if people read media takeout anymore, but I remember I was a big fan of media takeout
I
in
was a
college.
huge fan of media takeout.
I would read it every day in my dorm
Yeah.
room,
Yep.
and like you had to take it with a grain of salt, but I was also thankfully smart enough to question the stories and
Something
not
so
believe
yeah.
everything that I read.
Yeah.
I think that's really more dangerous sometimes than like negative images. I think
Yeah.
that being sure that we are mindful of what information is coming to us and why and who is it coming from.
Right.
I'm all for being a skeptic, but I'm not really for conspiracy theories. So I think when it comes to responsibility in that way, I think it's more about truth versus totally on image. But image is important. Like I said, like I love what you do because we don't often get to see black men in a positive light, or a black man in a suit.
Right.
Right. So but I mean, if you want to sag your pants, go ahead and do it. So I think we should just have diversity of images.
And I think to your point, it's also the person being able to, interpret the information. My issue with, and I guess it's not necessarily the issue with the blogs themselves. It's the issue with the people who consume them and then allow that information to now dictate their life or to do something based off of something that they see that's not always in the best light. So you have to be. It's more of like the audience aspect of it, because gossip blogs is not new. Now they're digital, but tabloids been around for ages. That's always how it's been. The National Enquirer, all those type of things. So it's not nothing new. I just think now with the consumption of how you're consuming it with social media so easily, so daily, so instant, it's really affecting people. And I don't think that people are doing the discernment to actually figure out, okay, what is this information? How is it coming to me? A lot of people taking it and run.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're still in this very weird spot in the black community where everyone doesn't have access to information. Well, they have access to it, but they're not utilizing that access properly.
Right.
And sometimes we can rely too much on a blog. Like if you're only getting your information from a blog, that's problem number one. Diversify where you get your information. Like if I'm reading media takeout, I know that I'm reading it for entertainment. It's for shits and giggles. It's like I might believe it, I might not. And sometimes on the internet, especially working in news, and you see some of the comments of some of these stories on social media. The things that people believe, it can be terrifying a little bit. When COVID-19 first hit, I'm not sure if you remember, but there was a conspiracy theory that Black people couldn't contract COVID-19.
Yeah.
And there were Black people in the comments, you know, saying this, and you know, they were like, there are no cases in Africa. You know, that's somehow proof that we're immune to this this disease. And obviously we learned shortly thereafter that not only are we susceptible to it, but we are disproportionately impacted by it. So it's important. Getting the truth is really important. And so blogs can be dangerous because they're in it for the shock value. And also remember that it's a business. You know, news is a business too. So I'm going to be transparent about that. But that's not really why we do what we do. And then in the blog world, it's about getting that traffic. Even when before blogs on the internet, the tabloids was all about that circulation and selling copies. And so if you can stretch the truth or outright lie, and if it gets people riled up, we call that yellow journalism for those who are nerds or want to know some terms. You know, it's always been a part of the human experience. Kind of exaggerating the truth or outright lying for the sake of capitalism, really, when you think about it.
What do you think about cultural appropriation?
Personally, to be honest, I don't get as riled up about it as some people do. But I definitely think it's problematic when you think about how Kim Kardashian can wear cornrows and even get a tan so much that she looks Black, but she doesn't have to experience what it's like to be Black. That bothers me. I don't mind. I'm a big Brandy fan.
I saw your interview.
Thank you. Shout out to Brandy B. Rocka. So Brandy and Ray J did an interview I think it was this year on The Talk, and they were asked about Kim Kardashian and cultural appropriation, and they kind of were like, you know, she, and I understand that point. Like I don't mind white people liking our culture or non-Black people liking our culture, but you don't have to be us to enjoy us.
Appreciate it.
And I think that white people it's not always coming from a malicious place. Sometimes it's just pure ignorance. But Kim Kardashian, when you're getting in the headlines every month, it seems, for cultural appropriation, you still do it. It makes you question, like, do you really care about us? Like, so it's kind of weird. Like you care about the community in a way that you like our music, like our fashion, our trends, but there's still like this piece there where it's like there's a disconnect. And so that cultural appropriation is going to be a thing, I think, for a while, because we even though we have not always been centered in this country, we know that we built this country. And so from cuisine to sports to fashion to music, we are the pillars and the innovators. And so because of that, you're going to see people always want to be attached to Blackness, but we're not seeing enough of them speak up for Blackness, you know, because even though we are the center of trends and entertainment, we're still being shot dead by police. We're being harassed, and these things are being caught on video, and we still have half the country voting for a Donald Trump. So clearly, you know, look, enjoy Blackness, but but speak up for us too, because I don't think that cultural appropriation that they're necessarily like maliciously racist, but we have to realize that being racist is not always about hate. It's about perpetuating white supremacy, and even if you're not doing it maliciously, it's still racist and it's still wrong. And so that's my thoughts on that.
Got it. Understood. And kind of in that vein, and you spoke a little bit about this earlier, but what I find interesting is these national publications and outlets who nationally, white, audience and talk to them and all of that. They are now creating segments specifically for the Black community, in the Black audience. What is your thoughts on that? I know you spoke to, you actually, you started out saying you have a couple friends, you still count them as Black journalists or Black media because they are inside of these predominantly white institutions or outlets and producing the content specifically for Black people. But, part of me is like, I get it, but then also we're here to produce that content. And then it's, why don't, for me, if you have a outlet that is national outlet, why do you need something that's specifically for Black people, whereas you just feed in the Black information or the Black stories inside your everyday content that you do? For me, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, look, I appreciate the fact that media is evolving and transforming to include our stories more than they've ever done before. But it's like separate but equal still. It's like, oh, we'll talk about your stories, but it's separate from our general programming.
Right.
And that's inherently racist still. And that's probably why I for most of my career have stayed in Black media, because it became clear to me that even though people think of journalism or media outlets as liberal, especially if you ask a Fox News reader or watcher, they think everyone, CNN, MSNBC, they're all liberals. But liberals can be racist too, and they can have these grandiose perceptions of whiteness, and it might not be top of mind for them. It might be subconscious, but that's the thing. So yeah, I think I think that we'll get there. I think that there's an awakening happening, especially with 2020. And so I think it's a good start. I'd rather them tell our stories on their platforms than not tell them at all. Right. But regardless, whether they do or not, Black media is always here to do that job for you. So
right. Agreed. Do you agree with cancel culture?
Eric.
Come on, we're gonna talk about it.
So before I answer the question, I think it's important for me to say that personally, I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I operate through a lens of radical compassion, and love for everyone.
Yeah.
But especially my people. But because of my spiritual practices, I believe that redemption is available for anyone. So because of that, it's difficult for me to say, yes, I agree with cancel culture, because it's almost like, imagine you made the most terrible mistake. And I'm not talking about, let's take aside the Bill Cosbys of the world.
Yes. Yes.
Let's more like people who said something stupid on the internet, for example.
Yes.
We've all made mistakes, and I've had an experience like that in the past, and you learn from your mistakes. And sometimes, especially if you're a public figure, you're making mistakes in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing to do, and I think that it's important to think about that and really put yourself in someone's shoes. And I believe that it's important to cancel people. It's important to not cancel, but
hold people accountable.
Okay. And so sometimes accountability looks like a boycott. I'm not listening to your music. It might not be canceled per se.
Yeah.
But the same way we boycott, the Montgomery bus boycott, or boycotting white businesses and supporting Black businesses instead. I think that boycotting is a form of protest, right? When you want your message to be heard. So it can be a form of protest to be like, you know what, I'm gonna put you on the burner for now, and and we're not gonna rock with you.
Right.
if the person comes back and acknowledges the wrong and the suffering that they've caused, and they are they're being heartfelt, I think it's important to forgive. I think it's important to give people second chances.
Yeah.
Because I would want a second chance if I made a mistake. You know, my intention is not to hurt anyone. So if I ever do anything or say anything that makes someone angry or sad, I think it's important. For me, it's not intentional, and I think that most people when they make mistakes, it's not intentional.
Right.
They just are ill-informed. So
Yeah, and I agree. I think about people as it pertains to so many of the cases that go through that we hear of about like Twitter, things that people have posted their tweets from 10 years ago. And a part of me is, I side eye people who are so quick to say, oh, this person said this 10 years ago. How could they X, Y, and Z? And that to me is people grow. You have to grow. You have to change. And holding people accountable for things that you did. Please don't hold me accountable for the things that I did 2 years ago, let alone 10, 15
especially not
ago.
in college. Oh my God.
Not in college, please, So I feel like, and to your point, you have these celebrities, you have these public figures who are living their lives and really trying to figure things out. The country is changing, the culture is changing, and you can't just, blanket say someone's canceled because they made a mistake, or you're pulling something back from years ago that's going to stop them from being great. And a lot of times that's what happens is people reach this. People don't care about it when you're nobody. People don't care about it when, nothing's going on with you. But it's like when you start to progress and all these things start to come out about you, or the things that people didn't care about before, they start to pull up your tweets and stuff. I used to be scared. I said, oh, I'm going to deactivate my Twitter. I don't know what's going on. But, it's important for people to, I always say this story. We put Mike Vick on our cover a few years back. And I remember this. Yeah, we put him on our cover, and this man has done. He works with the dogs. He has done jail. He's paid his money. All of these type of things, and the backlash that we got for putting him on the cover was still so great. Really wasn't from our community, but that's a whole nother conversation. But again, for Black men, speaking specifically for us on our platform, it's like they can't get a second chance. And I don't like that attitude and that thought process,
Yeah. I think, we have some work to do when it comes to like cancel culture. But I think that cancel culture is this very, oftentimes when change happens, it happens like it's like really extreme at first, and then things kind of settle. And I think that the rise of the Me Too movement and the racial reckoning in this country, people are tuned in. Like, even though woke has become this word that's been like overly used, the woke movement, like not just woke like for Black Lives Matter, but just being conscious. We're more conscious, I believe. I don't know about more. I shouldn't qualify in that way, but we're very conscious now. I think that we're able to call out injustices in a way that maybe we didn't do before. And I think that because of that, of wanting to hold people accountable and really speaking up more, we kind of fall into this like it's either this or it's nothing at all. And I don't live my life in extremes, and I think it's important that nothing good comes from extremism. And so that's why I would like to approach it more like taking a break versus cancel. Like, give them a chance to go to their corner and think about what they did. And if they come back with humility, then maybe our arms are wide open for you to bring you back in. Maybe. Right. But it's hard when you think about the Kanye West and Lil Wayne's of the world. It's hard because it hurts. I think what it is that we cancel people because when you do something that is against, or what you believe is against your community, or what's in the best interest of your community, it hurts when you see your own. So even Bill Cosby, it hurts to see this man that we once idolized end up being a
But
monster.
that is another problem that I have is the idolization of
Mhm.
celebrities.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, these people are still men, they are still human.
Mhm.
So we put people at this pedestal that allows us to feel that hurt as
Yeah.
if that's your brother, your sister, your whatever. And you're like, oh, I can't believe you did. Wow, you don't know this person. You know, they don't know their life, you don't, whatever. And also, you know,
Yeah.
social media now really brings us into knowing these people because we see them every day. We see them on vacation, home with their kids, doing X, Y,
Mhm.
and Z. So I understand that, but there is a problem with, you know, us making these celebrities our idol for sure.
Yeah, and then if you're if you're a Christian, for example, you
Mm-hmm.
know what the Bible says about false idols, like you don't idolize people,
That's it.
and we fall into that trap a lot.
Yeah.
And if I had to like kind of psychoanalyze it a little bit, I think because we've had, going back to representation and images, we've had such dark, nasty, disgusting images of us
Yeah.
that the rise of the black Hollywood star or the
Yeah.
black musicians who were like, that was all we saw as a community. We saw them in the magazines, we saw them on the TV.
Right.
Like what Diana Ross meant to people when she was at her prime.
Yeah.
And people like Nina Simone, like that representation, it matters. And so I think it morphed into this idolization that is now becoming a bit unhealthy, because now when they do something wrong, we don't want to criticize them.
Yeah.
And much like you make mistakes and I make mistakes, they make mistakes, and they can be wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's definitely, I don't know if it's more prevalent in our community,
Yeah.
but it does. And I think, actually, I would say it's not. I think, look at Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Like,
For
Donald
sure.
Trump is idolized by some,
Yes.
to me personally, I think they're out of their mind and racist. But he is idolized, and I think that that's a reflection of American culture,
Mm-hmm.
and the reality TV and all that. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And I think that if we turn the light onto our communities, like each other, and allow each other to. The perfect example is, like, remember magazines when they were like have like everyday people on the cover.
Yeah.
Like they used to highlight.
Yeah.
Businessmen and activists and leaders. And then because of advertising, they decided to go with celebrities every month. It got to be a big star because you want to sell the magazine.
Yeah.
And even that has played a role in the idolization of Black celebrities. But it's not just in our community. I think it's really a American cultural thing. I don't know enough about other cultures to say if it's outside of America, but it's definitely a thing.
So talking about Black Hollywood, do you think that Black celebrities have a responsibility to the media platforms that support and I want to say birth them? But you know
birth them, yeah.
And you know what I'm referencing. What's your thoughts on that?
Shout out to Kiara Kelly, because she's a Black journalist, and she wrote this really amazing piece for Hello Beautiful a couple of years ago, maybe like 2018, 2017. And she spoke to this because, and this is, I mean, she wasn't the first person to bring this up, but she did it in such a powerful way. And if for anyone who works in Black media, the experience of doing that interview with someone before they were like really hot shit, and you did the interview and they were so excited about it, and then fast forward a couple of years later, they're a little bit bigger, and
a little bit bigger,
a little bit bigger, and now they don't have time for an interview. They won't stop for you on the red carpet. And that's something that and that speaks to also going back to white supremacy, because oftentimes white supremacy will have us not value ourselves. And so the perfect example is like getting customer service. I'll go to somewhere and I'll see a white customer be treated completely different than me. Like, I get the attitude and I think it's sometimes the way we look at each other and the way that we've been conditioned to treat each other and see each other.
Okay.
And sometimes you get that from Black Hollywood. Sometimes they look at Black media as less than. They center Rolling Stone over the Grio or over Ebony or Essence.
Yeah.
And
to your point, also and then sometimes we don't even know if it's gotten to the actual artist because there's so many gatekeepers.
Yeah, the publicists.
The publicists, especially ones
everybody
that
wants to feel like they're important.
They want to feel like they're
and so
important.
It's passed to this person, then this person, then the assistant. And it's like it takes one person to go, hey, do you want to do this interview? Okay, what time are you free? What day are you free? Yeah. It's done.
That's
you
it.
know?
Yep.
But we have to go through these hoops, these jumps and hoops to get access. And so yeah, I think that Black Hollywood doesn't always value Black media in the way that I think they should. But to your point, like, you know, we birth a lot of these Black celebrities.
That's
the thing. No one was giving you a shot.
That's the thing. And I think, and also, you know, we've run into this countless times where, we'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, we want to put them on a cover. But you said, oh, well, who else have you had on your cover? Or, there's some type of equating the value of, your worth or you being able to do something great, do a photo shoot, if you're writing a piece of interview or whatever the case may be. And then a lot of times, you feel as though they don't necessarily, the person on the other end that you're communicating with, I will say that Black Hollywood thinks that white agents, managers, publicists are golden. That's who, if you get one of those, then
I made it.
You have made it.
Yeah.
And then those people, which not saying everybody, but a lot of times you have those people who are disconnected with the urban culture, the urban media, who are not familiar with the Grio, and just thinks that, oh no, they couldn't possibly do a good job or don't possibly have the numbers or whatever the case may be. And that's a challenge, but it's also, and I talk to my creative friends, as they, start to move in this entertainment industry, and I say, God, you have to work on making sure that you keep your own, when you're looking for people, publicists or whatever, if you have to find someone who's, not that big or whatever, but they will ride with you the entire way. They can learn, they can do the work, whatever the case may be. But it does take, for us, I do think that the Black Hollywood has a responsibility to stick with us because they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for us. Black Twitter for sure.
Yeah. And oftentimes we're so loyal to, we're really loyal to Black Hollywood, because again, for those of us who work in Black media, we're fans too. We see you, we're family, we want to see you win. Yeah. And so it can be really it's really whack. It can be really hurtful when you're treated like you're not important. Not to flex, but the Grio, we get millions of viewers every month, so don't downplay us, because when shit hits the fan, when they don't rock with you no more, we're the first ones you're gonna come to, because how loyal we are. And so, yeah, it's frustrating. I hate to do this, but I think it's a perfect example, and I hate to call her out, but I did an interview at BET with Chrisette Michele. And before I even tell this story, I think it's important to say that I don't know her personally. I don't know what she's experienced in her. I mean, she shared things obviously publicly. I don't know her story, and it could have been a bad day. Right. And I see a metamorphosis in Chrisette Michele today, and I believe that she's a different Chrisette today than she was then. But I had an experience. I did an interview with her, and it just wasn't pleasant. And maybe she had a bad day. But she wasn't nice, and I don't mean dry. I mean she just was not, I don't even know. I'm not sure she ever smiled. and then you fast forward to 2016 when she performed at the Trump inauguration. Everybody speaking of cancel culture, everyone canceled her. And who did Chrisette Michele go to when she wanted to redeem her career? Black media. Right. So. And specifically even the Breakfast Club, and that's also Black media. And so I've seen examples of us as Black media kind of bailing bailing them out. It's like helping Black Hollywood tell their story or paint their narrative, whether it's for PR or whatever. They have an agenda oftentimes.
Right.
And because, you know, of that familial relationship that we have with them and with each other.
Fight, get back together, it's cool. You know, we fight, we family, it's ha ha ha, we get it. So,
yeah. So it's interesting. It's like, you know, it's like the golden rule is humble yourself. You know, that's all I think this conversation is about. Is like, it comes down to humility.
Yeah.
And sometimes celebrity can really inflate the ego. And, you know, making it is like proximity to whiteness too. So success to them is the cover of Billboard magazine and getting a Grammy and not getting a BET award or an NAACP award. And you've seen a shift, you know, and I've seen nowadays, like the NAACP awards, for example, everybody comes.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett, Will Smith, like they all show up. You know, and that was intentional because that was after the whole Oscar so white thing. But it took experiencing racism in predominantly white spaces for Black Hollywood to all of a sudden have respect and revere for Black institutions.
What do you think, or how do you think Black platforms can do better with being more forward thinking of the stories of people of color?
Wow, that's a good question.
Listen,
you know,
I had to come correct with you, okay? You journalists, listen, I have to come correct, okay? I was sitting here doing my research, Dane and I getting it together. So.
Yes, I love it. That's a really good question. And that's something I've given thought to because me and my friends, we talk a lot about Afrofuturism. And people have, I think, different interpretations or ideas of what that is. But I see that as a society in which, or a world in which Blackness is at the center. Like, imagine if white supremacy never existed and Blackness was centered. You know, imagine the things we would have been able to do if we weren't always held back so much. Yeah. I think about Black Panther and the Wakanda world. Like, that was an example of Black futurism. It was like, even though it was fictional, it was like this black country, African country, where they used their resources to build and create technology that was not only beneficial to them and their communities, but it helped the world. Really, it was a global thing. And so, taking it back to 2020, I think that, you know, obviously we want to go beyond where we are right now as a community, like beyond police brutality and poverty and violence. Because Afrofuturism, to me, the future of the Black narrative it goes to a place where we are not held back by white supremacy. We can be our full selves. I go to therapy every week because I think that white supremacy, and I'm a gay Black man, so homophobia, like all these things, it can play with your head. You know, it can really impact how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself. Right. And we have not always been allowed to be our full selves as Black people. And so my dream is to see Black media tell stories that go beyond now, but we're locked into what we're experiencing now because it's right in front of us. Yeah. We can't escape racism. And it can be difficult telling both those narratives, you know, the suffering that we're going through, but then also the innovation and the enterprising of our communities. And so at the Grio, we try to do a balance of that, and I hope that people appreciate that. And it's not easy work. And obviously we can't tell everybody's story. And so many people are always, you know, in our inboxes, like, can you cover this? Can you cover this story? It can be a really hyper local story, and like, please. And we want to do those things. And I think that there's space for that. And I think that the future is limitless if we continue in this fight, this movement to really ensure that Black lives actually matter. And that we actually meet our liberation, this liberation that we've been fighting for centuries. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but
No, I
yeah,
get it. No, I
but
definitely get it. I definitely
yeah.
see it. It definitely makes sense. And and I always say this to, um, especially when to your point about the Oscars so white, I was so afraid that people would be on the following year, would be on the ballot just because they are black. And let me check this box off. Let me just this black person, or let me just throw this black person in there, or let me do X, Y, and Z. And to me, I also know that black people and the things that we do must be of quality and must be substantive. It's important for us to also do excel, to actually produce great work. It's time and time, you don't just want to be in a bucket of having, things just being done just because you are black. You still have to put in the work. You still want us to support you, because you have good work. And that's why so many things like HBO does an amazing job at producing the content that they have been producing recently, because it's really, really, it's engaging. It's nice. Everybody, it's really good work. And that is building a community and the work for people.
Yeah, and yeah, that kind of goes to my point about innovation. We're so talented, and there's so much we can do. And I really feel like when it comes to human society, but specifically the Black community, there's so much. There's so much we can go so much higher. And we're getting there. I think that's what makes. I like to be hopeful, and I'm hopeful that one day, we'll turn on the TV and Black stories are told like it just like any other story, and we won't see countless Black people being murdered by police and crazy white people. I really envision a society where we are able to just be our full selves and continue to create, and explore parts of ourselves that bring us closer together, that celebrates life, because all we want really as human beings is to be seen, to be to feel a part of something. And I think there's just so many things that stop us from doing that, like racism and sexism and homophobia and xenophobia. These things that we're like, oh, you're different from me. I'm gonna judge you. I'm gonna harm you. Whatever that is. So we have to move past that. But when it comes to when it comes to storytelling, I think that we can start now. I think that we're trying really hard at the Grio to go beyond that and not just share the suffering of Black people, but talk about the triumphs of Black people and the great things that we're doing, and how we're growing and evolving. I'm so inspired by the Gen Z. They're so much more woke than I was when I was 13, 14, even 18. So that gives me hope. It means that we're getting better. Each generation is getting better, and we're constantly improving. We're loving each other more. We have Black men standing up for Black trans women and Black women, and we have Black women always been holding everybody down.
Always.
But that's a beautiful thing to see, because that's where it starts. When we start lifting each other up, even like in Black media, shout out to Essence and Ebony and BET.
There's not enough of us.
Yeah, there's not enough of us.
Angry or to be competitive. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's not enough.
Yeah, and it's not productive. I think if anything, we should be pushing each other to be better. It's like if I see a bomb ass article on the root.com, it's like, dang, look at the Root. Okay, I see you. Let us get our stuff together. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Healthy competition is good.
It's good.
But I don't if there's one thing people can say about me is that I'm not a hater. And and I think that once we get out of that mentality, there's so much we can do. And it starts with lifting each other up. Because it makes you feel good when you do that, and when you feel good, you do great things. So I think that's where it starts.
Awesome. So before they cut us off, so what can we look forward to from Gerren and the Grio?
Well, make sure you tune in to the Dear Culture podcast. We launched a podcast during the pandemic, which was no easy feat. So you can subscribe on anywhere you listen to your podcast. Spotify, Apple Music. So we're rebranding it. So we'll be relaunching it soon. I'm the now permanent co-host of Dear Culture, along with Shauna Pennick, who's our social media director. She's also a Spelman grad, so we got that Spell House connection going on.
Okay, Spell House.
So we have that, and yeah, just look forward. For me, you know, for me, my focus is just building the Grio. You know, I would love to say, you know, I got a book coming out, y'all. But you know, I really look forward to leaning into this work of uplifting our community. And telling my own personal stories as well, because I think I have things to share that I think can be useful to the community, and I think that. And then yeah, the Grio is we're launching some really cool stuff, and shout out to Byron Allen, who owns the Grio. He is building quite the media empire, and so you will be seeing some great things. I don't want to get in trouble by
don't say too much. Perfect. Well, we want to thank you for joining us again. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Thank you so much for contributing to our culture issue. It was amazing. Again, guys,
it's an amazing issue too. Thank you so much.
No, of course.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this conversation.
No, this is awesome. We got to do this again.
In person.
We haven't.
I feel like I know you, but I think that's social media for you.
That's social media. You know everybody.
Yeah. You're great.
But we will get up soon. But thank you so much, and we'll talk soon, all right?
All right, take care.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.